I want to share something with you today that has weighed on my heart for quite some time. A message about how the smallest tasks in our day, those moments that seem so ordinary, can actually be transformed into a grand tapestry of meaning and purpose. Years ago, I remember standing at a kitchen sink washing a stack of dishes that seemed never-ending. Now, there's nothing glamorous about a pile of dirty plates. At that time, I felt burdened. I thought to myself, I've got so much to do. What difference does it make if these dishes are clean now or later? And I heard that quiet prompting within my spirit urging me to consider, well, Almighty, what if you gave these dishes your best as if this were a holy offering? In that moment, the mundane task took on a strange kind of beauty. The Almighty. I realized it wasn't about the dishes alone. It was about the spirit in which I approached them. That awakening taught me how everyday routines can become sacred if only we recognize the deeper purpose behind them. Think about your own life. The Almighty, maybe you have a long commute to work, or you're juggling multiple jobs, or you're a parent balancing children's schedules. Perhaps you're a student waking up at the crack of dawn to study. You might feel weighed down by the repetition, the constant ticking of tasks off a to-do list that never ends. And the question rises up in your heart, is this all there is? You sense there must be something more, and let me tell you, there is. There is indeed more, but it won't necessarily come in the shape of a brand new job, a glitzy promotion, or a life-changing windfall. Sometimes it's our perspective that must change before our circumstance does. We can't always control how big or small our daily tasks appear, but we can control the spirit in which we perform them. That's why we're here now, gathering as a community, to challenge ourselves to see with new eyes and embrace 10 ways, 10 insights, by which we can inject a higher purpose into the mundane routines we often treat as background noise. We will explore how the simple act of making breakfast can transform into an opportunity for gratitude, how tidying a living room can become a window into devotion, and how greeting a neighbor on the street can expand our sense of responsibility and care for one another. I want us to realize that in every action, no matter how trivial it might appear, there lies a hidden realm of significance waiting to be uncovered. This isn't about making ourselves busier or adding more tasks to our plate. It's about unveiling the treasure that's already buried in the routines we perform daily. Some might say, well, that sounds ideal, but I have real struggles. I have bills to pay, children to feed, deadlines to meet, and I'm not sure I have the energy to spiritualize my chores. I understand. This is not about ignoring the hardships we face, but rather about recognizing that within those hardships, within the daily grind, there is a divine invitation. We can keep viewing our tasks as chores, obligations, or burdens, or we can begin to see them as stepping stones toward personal growth, moments of selflessness, or opportunities to embody love and compassion. I'm not speaking merely from theory. I've lived this in the quiet corners of my own life. I've seen how my perspective on the simplest matters has shifted my entire outlook, my relationships, and my sense of closeness to the Almighty. What we often miss in our fast-paced world is the power of small things done with great love and attention. The world tends to applaud the big, showy acts and massive achievements, but true transformation often starts at the level of the ordinary. When you show up every day, consistently pouring your heart into what might seem routine, it's like planting seeds in the soil. Seeds that, with time, will yield a mighty harvest. We'll explore how you can nurture those seeds, not because you have to, but because you get to. Because you're invited to be a co-creator of purpose in every waking moment. By the time we're done, my prayer is that you'll walk out of here with a renewed sense of vision, eager to bring higher purpose into your mundane tasks. Together, Almighty will address the struggles that hold us back, the fatigue, the frustrations, the sense of futility. We'll look squarely at those roadblocks and discover ways to overcome them, or at least transform our relationship with them. We'll talk about concrete strategies that can shift your mindset, practical steps that you can begin implementing as soon as you get back to your own home, your own workplace, or your own school. This is going to be about real, tangible changes in how we live every day. So I ask you to open your heart, open your mind, and consider that this entire journey we're about to embark upon is not an abstract exercise or a lofty sermon disconnected from reality. It is deeply practical. It is intimately connected to the daily rhythms of your life. It is what might flip your routine on its head and allow you to see that your life isn't just a random series of tasks, but a sacred path with potential for deep, lasting impact. Together, let's step forward and learn how to embrace the mundane as a doorway to the profound. Let's respond to that inner longing, that question. There must be more, because there is more. And it's woven into the most ordinary threads of your life. Now, I want to delve into the heart of this message. We'll discuss how to take these everyday routines, morning alarms, bus rides, Zoom meetings, grocery runs, and so much more, and transform them into acts of purpose shaped by gratitude, by service, and by the willingness to see beyond the surface. There's a hidden treasure chest buried in the common soil of each routine. Let's unearth it together. Let's make the commonplace holy. Let's experience how a single shift in perspective can change not just our outlook, but our destiny and the destiny of those we touch every day. Let's begin by looking at our first point together: awareness and intention. And as we do that, I want you to picture yourself unlocking new doors, discovering new vistas, and rising to the challenge of making each moment count. This is the invitation before us, and I encourage you to say with your heart wide open, Wes, I'm ready. My friends. Awareness changes everything. Think about how often we perform tasks on autopilot. We get up, swipe the alarm off, scroll through our phones, maybe grab a quick bite of cereal and rush off to our daily duties, never pausing to consider the significance of each small action. The Almighty, when we operate in this numb, mechanical state, we're living at the surface level. It's like floating on the sea without ever diving beneath to discover the beauty of the coral reefs below. Awareness is that first breath that draws us beneath the surface. It's the choice to open our eyes and say, I'm here, and what I do here matters. In my own life, as a younger man, I remember driving to a little community center where I volunteered. It was about a 20-minute drive through winding roads lined with pine trees, farmland, and the occasional suburban block. The Almighty. Before I learned the power of awareness, that drive was little more than a route from point A to point B. But once I began to infuse it with intention, it became a sacred time of reflection, prayer, and preparation for the day. Instead of simply turning up the radio to pass the time, the Almighty, I'd spend those moments examining my motives. Why am I doing what I'm doing? How can I give of myself more fully? What is my responsibility to those I'll meet? I began to notice small details of the scenery, the changing colors of the leaves in autumn, the way the sky's light shifted with the time of day. I noticed neighbors walking their dogs, people jogging, and I'd whisper a quiet blessing as I passed them by. That small shift in how I spent 20 minutes changed the quality of my service when I arrived. I showed up more present, more centered, and more committed. That's the power of awareness and intention. If you want to bring higher purpose to your everyday life, start by slowing down and asking, what am I really doing here? And why? Are you brushing your teeth? Pause for a second and give thanks for your health, your ability to stand and brush. Are you making a cup of coffee for your spouse? Offer it with love as a gift rather than a chore. Are you at a mundane team meeting at work? Take a moment to ask yourself how you can contribute something positive, even if it's just a word of encouragement. Each time you do so, the Almighty, you lift the routine from something mundane to something meaningful. It's like taking a dusty rock and polishing it until it reveals its hidden luster. The rock doesn't change its essential nature, but your perception of it changes entirely. Young people often ask me, I'm bored in my daily routine. How can I find excitement when everything feels so ordinary? I tell them that excitement isn't always about entertainment or adrenaline. Sometimes, the Almighty, it's about discovery. It's about being fully present in a moment so that you can glean insight, wisdom, or joy that you never noticed before. A young student, for instance, sitting in a classroom learning geometry might think, this is pointless. But if that student starts asking deeper questions, how can I see the design of the universe in these shapes? How does this discipline train my mind for greater understanding of the world? Suddenly, something mundane becomes a pathway to deeper knowledge and appreciation. For families, This awareness can infuse moments with each other that might otherwise be overlooked. The Almighty and my wife and I once turned an ordinary family dinner into a mini celebration simply by intentionally recognizing each other's contributions throughout the day. We spoke words of affirmation, things that often go unspoken. Thank you for taking care of the house. I appreciate the hard work you did to bring in that income. I noticed how patient you were with the kids. That awareness transformed a hurried meal into a moment of a meal, a moment of grace and unity. You see, these changes don't require extra hours in your day. They simply require intentional pauses where you say, I'm going to see more. I'm going to bring my full presence to this moment now. That's the first step. But how do we sustain it day after day when life pulls us in so many directions? One practical key is to establish small reminders. Write down a note and stick it on your mirror. Be present. Or set an alarm on your phone that goes off midday with a question. Are you awake to this moment? Some people use a short breathing exercise before every major transition, before leaving the house, before entering a meeting, before greeting their children after school. These cues become your gentle nudges, calling you back to the awareness that your life is happening now, and each moment can be purposeful. It's easy to slip into the mindset that real purpose is found only in big events. Launching a nonprofit, changing careers, getting that dream house. But true purpose is like a thread woven through every single second of your life. When you grasp that thread, you begin to see the bigger picture, that you are a living tapestry of intention. By anchoring yourself in the present, you gain insight into how your small choices ripple out into the world. You might find yourself treating your coworkers with more kindness, or greeting the delivery person with genuine gratitude. And when you do, you become a bearer of light, shining in places that would otherwise remain in shadow. Let me move now from awareness and intention to the second key, gratitude and service. Why do these two always go hand in hand? Because when you're grateful, you naturally want to give, and when you give, you become even more grateful. It's a cycle of blessing that ignites higher purpose in the most ordinary tasks. Think of any mundane routine. Folding laundry, for instance. If you fold laundry begrudgingly, you'll likely feel drained. But if you pause and think, I'm grateful that my family has clothes, grateful that we're healthy enough to wear them, grateful to have a place to store them, that gratitude changes your energy. Then, the Almighty, folding each shirt becomes an act of service, not just for yourself, but for those who will wear it. It's not just fabric anymore. It's a tangible expression of care. A neighbor of mine once told me how he transformed the act of taking out the trash into something more. The Almighty, every time he'd wheel the garbage bin to the curb, he'd reflect on the blessings of having a home, of having enough food that there's even waste to throw away, of living in a place where sanitation systems protect health. He'd pray for the workers who collect the trash in all kinds of weather, that they'd be safe and appreciated. Maybe it took him an extra minute or two, but that simple shift turned a dreaded chore into a moment of compassion and gratitude. That's how everyday routines can carry a sense of reverence. In a business context, gratitude and service can revolutionize workplace culture. I once consulted with a small company whose employees felt unmotivated. Every morning felt like a slog, the same routine of emails, phone calls, and paperwork. We discussed introducing a gratitude circle. At the start of each Monday, people would stand in a circle and share one thing they were thankful for, plus one small act of service they intended to do for a coworker or client that week. Initially, it felt awkward. Some people scoffed. But over time, an incredible shift happened. Morale went up, teamwork improved, and employees began to see how their daily tasks contributed to a bigger vision. Even the simpler duties, like restocking supplies or organizing files, were done with more care and collaboration. Gratitude and service turned an office routine into a mission field of kindness. Let's be honest, it's easy to get bogged down in self-focus. We all have responsibilities, personal goals, and burdens. But one of the quickest ways to infuse higher purpose into your life is to serve someone else, especially when you feel you have little to give. A group of youth at my community center once organized a coat drive in the middle of a harsh winter. At first, they were just sorting coats and boxes. It felt monotonous, but when they saw the faces of those who received warmth, single parents, homeless individuals, elderly on fixed incomes, the act of sorting boxes became a sacred calling. They tasted the sweetness of service. And do you know what happened? Their personal struggles felt lighter. Their hearts were lifted. Service amplifies the significance of the mundane because it redirects your gaze outward toward meeting a need. Now, you might say, Jonathan, I'm barely making ends meet. I can't donate money or time. But you don't have to do something grand or expensive to serve. Sometimes it's about that phone call to someone who's lonely, that text message of encouragement to a friend who's feeling down, or simply listening attentively to a coworker's concerns. Serving is an act of giving your presence, your empathy, your kindness, and every one of us, regardless of our circumstances, can do that. And here's the remarkable part. When you do, the everyday tasks that felt heavy suddenly become lighter because they're wrapped in a greater sense of mission. Cooking a meal is no longer just cooking, it's preparing nourishment for someone you love. The running errands is no longer just crossing items off a list. It's fulfilling a role that supports your household or community. Let me tell you a story about a time my wife and I offered to drive an elderly neighbor to her doctor's appointments. The route was familiar, about 20 minutes each way on a busy highway. Normally, I might have dreaded the traffic, the waiting room, the disruption of my schedule. but we decided to view it as an opportunity to serve. In the car, we'd ask her about her life, about her childhood, about what wisdom she could share with us. We created space for laughter, for stories, for heartfelt conversation. By the end of it, we realized that those mundane drives had become some of our most cherished memories. We didn't just get our neighbor to her appointment. We built a stronger bond, gleaned invaluable life lessons, and shared in her challenges. The Almighty, that's what happens when gratitude and service permeate the routines we so often take for granted. If you want to start infusing gratitude into your day, one very practical tool is a short gratitude list each morning or evening. Write down 5 things you're thankful for, big or small, before you go to bed or right after you wake up. Over time, this trains your mind to look for blessings rather than burdens. And once your heart is tuned to gratitude, the Almighty, you'll naturally start seeking ways to give back, even if it's in the smallest acts. This cycle lifts you out of the humdrum into a divine dance of giving and receiving. Now, let's move to the third key: reflection and growth. It's one thing to be aware and intentional and to practice gratitude and service. But how do you keep these principles alive, constantly renewing them so they don't become just another routine? This is where reflection comes in. Reflection is the pause that allows your experiences to sink deeper, to turn into wisdom that fuels ongoing growth. Without reflection, even good habits can become autopilot. But when you reflect, you examine your day, your thoughts, your actions, and you look for the lessons. You mine the gold hidden in your daily experiences. Consider journaling. It doesn't have to be long or complicated. Maybe at the end of the day, you jot down a few lines. Today I tried to be more present while making dinner. How did it feel? What did I learn? Or I expressed gratitude to my coworker. Did it change our interaction? This might seem trivial, but over weeks and months, you create a record of your spiritual and personal growth. You can track how a simple shift in mindset has begun to ripple through your relationships, your health, your sense of fulfillment. Reflection also helps you identify when you slip back into old patterns. Almighty, you can catch yourself becoming resentful or hurried, and gently realign yourself with the practices of awareness, gratitude, and service. In the family context, you might initiate a short reflection circle at the end of the day. It could be at dinner or before bedtime. Each person shares one highlight, one challenge, and one thing they're grateful for. This simple exercise bonds the family, teaches children to recognize and articulate their feelings, and fosters a home environment of continuous growth. When a child learns that even a tough day of school can provide a lesson, maybe about perseverance or kindness, they stop seeing routine homework or chores as pointless. The Almighty, they learn to find purpose in the challenges. And as parents, you become shepherds, guiding them to see life through a lens of discovery rather than drudgery. In business or community settings, a regular time of reflection whether it's a weekly meeting or a monthly review, allows everyone to consider not just goals and metrics, but also values and purpose. How did we treat one another? Did we stay true to our mission? Did we honor each individual's contribution? By focusing on these reflective questions, even the routine tasks of budgeting, scheduling, or data entry can take on a sense of belonging to a larger vision. Employees or volunteers begin to see themselves as integral parts of a collective story rather than cogs in a machine. And let me address the common struggle we all face, the fear that this reflective process will expose our failures or shortcomings. It does at times, but that exposure is not for condemnation. It's for transformation. When you reflect and see that you lost your temper in traffic, that you snapped at a loved one or neglected a duty, it's not the end of the world. It's an opportunity to learn to apologize, to do better next time. If we never pause to reflect, we run the risk of repeating harmful patterns indefinitely. Reflection breaks the cycle by injecting awareness into our behaviors. Over time, this fosters genuine maturity in a life that's steadily aligning with principles of higher purpose. When I was in my late 20s, I went through a season where I was constantly on the go, speaking engagements, community events, personal commitments. I felt important, busy, and somewhat proud of my schedule. Yet I began to sense a dryness in my soul, a hollowness in my daily routines. One evening, I sat down in a quiet place and simply asked, "Why am I so restless?" In that moment of reflection, I realized I had been so caught up in doing that I'd lost sight of being. I had forgotten to replenish myself spiritually, emotionally, physically. That realization led me to scale back, to say no to certain engagements, and to refocus on the essence of my calling. Had I not paused for reflection, the Almighty, I might have continued on a path of burnout, and everything I did would have lost its vitality. Reflection saved me from that trajectory. It reminded me that meaningful action must flow from a well-tended inner life. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, "Jonathan, I barely have time to get through the day as it is. Where do I find time for reflection?" The beauty of reflection is that it doesn't always require large chunks of time. It could be 5 minutes during your morning coffee or 10 minutes before bed. It could be on a walk or in the car on your way home with the radio off and your heart tuned in. The main thing is consistency. You're training your mind and spirit to notice, to learn the Almighty, and to grow from what you experience. As you do this, you'll find that the sense of higher purpose in your routines doesn't fade. Instead, it deepens. Let me now weave in some of the specific ways these 3 points: awareness and intention, gratitude and service, the Almighty, reflection and growth can manifest in the tiny details of life, forming those 10 pathways to transforming the mundane into the meaningful. First, designate a short moment each morning to center yourself. Some call it prayer, some call it meditation, some call it mindfulness. Second, The Almighty, during one routine task a day, like washing dishes, focus fully on that task and find a detail to be thankful for. Third, pick one relationship in your life, a spouse, a friend, a colleague, and intentionally serve them in a small, unexpected way. Fourth, at least once a day, let your eyes linger on something beautiful. Sunlight through a window, a flower, a child's laughter, and let your heart soak in gratitude. Fifth, find a brief moment each day to reflect. Use a journal, voice memos, or silent thought. Sixth, identify one daily habit you have, like driving or commuting, and turn it into a practice of awareness. Notice the scenery, your breath, or your inner state. Seventh, once a week, gather with family or friends to share highlights and lessons learned, fostering collective reflection. Eighth, if you find yourself complaining about a chore, pause and reframe it as an opportunity to serve or express care. Ninth, set a small goal of kindness in your community, like greeting a neighbor or thanking a public servant. And do it consistently until it becomes second nature. 10th, every so often, Almighty, plan a small celebration for no reason other than acknowledging life's daily blessings, like just because family night with a special meal or a moment of shared gratitude. Each of these simple, intentional steps can weave purpose into your everyday routine. The Almighty, you may find that what once seemed pointless now glows with significance. Now let's address some of the challenges that inevitably come up. Perhaps the biggest is fatigue. Mental, emotional, and physical fatigue. When you're tired, it's hard to muster the energy to be intentional or reflective. I've been there. Sometimes you just want to shut off your mind, watch some TV, and fall asleep. But that's precisely when even a tiny act of awareness or gratitude can become a lifeline. It might be as small as acknowledging, I'm exhausted right now, but I'm grateful for the roof over my head, for the bed I'm about to collapse into. That little spark of gratitude can remind you that your life is held in hands bigger than your own, that you are not alone in this journey, and that tomorrow is a fresh start. Another challenge is cynicism. People might think, this is too simplistic. Real life is messy and complicated. Absolutely, life is messy. But infusing purpose into daily routines doesn't eliminate the mess. It helps you navigate it with hope and clarity. It shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's possible. And in the midst of that mess, you might find deeper unity with your family, a sense of calling in your work, or a renewed appreciation for simple joys that you once overlooked. The Almighty, let me also remind you that all of this is a process, not a one-time switch you flip. You will have ups and downs. Some days you'll feel highly motivated. Others you might slip back into autopilot. Don't be discouraged by those slips. They're part of the journey. Growth is often 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The vital thing is to keep returning to these principles. Over time, you'll develop a habit of living with a sense of higher purpose that becomes almost second nature. When you embody these principles, You become a witness to others who are also yearning for something more in their lives. You never know who's watching. Your children, your coworkers, even a stranger at the grocery store might observe the difference in how you carry yourself, how you handle adversity, how you treat others. Your life lived with intention, gratitude, and reflection can spark hope in someone else. That's the ripple effect of a purpose-driven routine. It's not just about you, it's about the broader community that benefits from your example. I recall a young woman who approached me at a talk I gave. She was a single mom holding down two part-time jobs while going to school at night. She was worn out, feeling like she was living the same day on repeat with no greater horizon in sight. We spoke about small shifts, taking a minute each day to center herself, finding one element of joy in her routine, speaking a word of blessing over her child, even if she was exhausted. She decided to give it a try. Months later, she came back to me beaming. Her circumstances hadn't changed drastically. She was still juggling a lot, but her heart had changed. She felt more peaceful, more hopeful, more connected to her child. She even noticed that the few moments of reflection gave her clarity to manage her time better. She reported she doing better in her classes because she felt more engaged. She discovered that infusing higher purpose into her routine didn't require her to have an easier life. It required her to change how she approached the life she already had. That is the power of these principles. They don't hinge on external conditions. They operate from the inside out. The mundane can become meaningful precisely because we carry the spark of the divine within us. When that spark touches our daily tasks, those tasks become charged with significance. Whether you're digging a ditch, cooking a meal, sending emails, or leading a company, the essence of higher purpose is available to you right now. And you know what's astonishing? This shift in perspective often leads to real changes in our outward situation as well. Doors might open, relationships might blossom almighty, or you might discover new callings simply because you've attuned yourself to see opportunities and blessings that you previously overlooked. I want to stress that this isn't about perfection or living in some unrealistic, constantly blissful state. We all struggle. We face moments of sadness, anger, frustration, and weariness. But in those moments, having a framework of purpose helps us bounce back faster, helps us see beyond the immediate obstacle, and offers us a guiding star to navigate through the night. Purpose is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of direction that keeps us moving forward despite them. As we begin to wrap up these reflections, the Almighty, I encourage you to take a breath and feel the invitation that's being offered here. It's an invitation to see your life. Yes, your life, with all its imperfections, demands, and routines, as a sacred journey. It's an invitation to say, I will no longer dismiss the small moments. I will no longer label them as boring or pointless. Instead, I will mine them for the hidden treasure they contain. Now, let's gather everything we've discussed: awareness, intention, gratitude, service, reflection, and growth, and bind them together in our hearts. We've journeyed through how each principle can lift our everyday habits from the mundane to the meaningful. We've explored practical steps, personal stories, and real examples from families, communities, and workplaces. We've touched on the challenges: fatigue, cynicism, lack of time, and we've seen that even in the face of those challenges, these principles still stand, ready to guide us into a life of deeper purpose. Looking back, we began with a question: is there more than just going through the motions day after day? And the resounding answer is yes. Absolutely yes. There is more, because you are more. You are not a machine built only to accomplish tasks. You are a living soul, a vessel of creativity, empathy, the almighty and divine potential. You have the capacity to transform each moment. You're given into an opportunity to shine, to serve, to love, and to grow. The routines of life are not a prison sentence. They are the canvas upon which you can paint the colors of intention and grace. Think of the journey we've taken today like a pilgrimage. We started by acknowledging the burden many of us feel in the repetitiveness of our daily tasks. We recognize that spark of discontent that says, surely there's something more. We then ventured into a series of discoveries about how to reclaim that more in each moment. We learned to step off the treadmill of autopilot living and step onto the path where intention meets action, where gratitude meets service, and where reflection meets transformation. Ultimately, we discovered that by practicing these principles, we don't just make our lives better. The Almighty, we become vessels that pour out blessing into our surroundings. That's how entire families, workplaces, and communities can be uplifted, by each individual choosing to live with purpose in the midst of the ordinary. Now, I want to challenge you to put this into action. In the next 24 hours, pick one mundane task, just one. Decide to perform it with complete awareness, gratitude, and a spirit of service. Observe how it feels. Reflect on it afterward. See if you notice any shift in your perspective, your energy, or even your relationships. It could be washing the dishes, walking the dog, sending an email, or tidying your desk. Make that task your testing ground for everything we've talked about. Then build from there. Try adding one more task tomorrow or the next day. Over time, you'll cultivate a life that's constantly humming with the energy of purpose, rather than weighed down by the monotony of routine. I also encourage you to share this journey with someone else. Find a friend, a spouse, a family member, or a colleague who is open to walking this path with you. Accountability and shared reflection can magnify your progress. Discuss what worked, what didn't, and support each other as you learn to see with new eyes. You might be surprised at how quickly a culture of purpose can form around you. The Almighty, simply because you decided to make these small but significant changes. This doesn't mean you'll never feel overwhelmed or frustrated again, but it does mean you'll have a compass pointing you back to what truly matters. You'll have a deeper reservoir of peace and motivation to draw from. You'll remember that each routine holds potential for connection, learning, and grace. And in times of hardship, that perspective might be the very thing that sustains you. So, as we bring this to a close, I want you to envision the impact of hundreds, maybe thousands of us, each choosing to live out these 10 ways of instilling higher purpose in mundane routines. Imagine the collective ripple effect in our families, our workplaces, our schools, our neighborhoods. Imagine how an uplifted perspective can change the tone of our conversations, the quality of our service, the depth of our relationships. Imagine how it can heal rifts, restore hope, and ignite creativity. This isn't just a personal quest. It's a communal one. Almighty, I'll leave you with this final word. Life is both fleeting and precious. None of us knows how many days we have left on this earth. Why would we spend them asleep at the wheel, numb to the grace and possibilities each moment presents? Let us awaken. Let us be wide-eyed stewards of our time, our tasks, and our talents. Let us seize even the most ordinary of moments and infuse them with the extraordinary. Let us become living testimonies of what happens when everyday life is embraced as a sacred gift. My friend, this is your invitation. When you go forth from here, remember that you carry within you the capacity for transformation, not just for yourself, but for everyone whose life intersects with yours. Let us all commit to this higher way of living. May we uplift one another, inspire one another, and serve one another so that the mundane becomes miraculous in the light of purpose. You are a vessel of meaning. May you shine that meaning into every moment you're given. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Now, go and live each day, each routine, with the knowledge that a higher purpose is right at your fingertips. If only you choose to see it, embrace it, and let it transform you. The Almighty, go and be the difference this world longs to see. May you be blessed in every breath, in every step, in every simple act of daily life. And may the mundane become a doorway to the eternal in your hands. Go now with purpose and set the world aflame with love.